The Pearl of the Med and the Mermaid's Song. Where the sea sighs against the shore and moonlight bathes the town in gold, a mermaid sings, her voice untamed, calling lovers young and old. Through winding streets of cobblestone, where whispered vows and secrets roam, they run, they hide, their hands entwined, lost in love, lost in time. But when the night turns stone to light and Altea's pearl begins to glow, her song drifts soft upon the waves, a hymn of love, a spell unknown. It bends the world, it sways the night, it heals the heart, it lifts the sight. And those who hear no longer roam, the mermaid's voice will lead them home.
Beautiful poem, Laura.
Oh.
Welcome to Made in Spain. I'm Nalini Sharma.
And I'm Laura Cine Garcia. Season 2, everyone. We're so happy to be here. Episode 1, Season 2. Can't wait to share this new season with you.
We are focusing on Altea today. In 2023, National Geographic ranked Altea, along with Guadalest, they both happen to be close to where we live, as two of the most beautiful towns in Spain for fantastic reasons, because they are really spectacular. Now, we're focusing on Altea Old Town. And for anybody who's been there, that would refer to the little winding streets that lead you up to the church and the main sort of plaza.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about the history in a moment. But if you listen to us in season 1, I would say that if you want to contrast the baddie of the Costa Blanca that we said was Benidorm, Altea is pretty much just as far as it gets from that.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that makes that contrast possible is the laws that they have had in Altea for a long time around how tall they can build the buildings are very, very strict. So as you have, Benidorm with a kind of Manhattan-like huge high-risers, Altea, you are not allowed to build over a certain amount of floors. So when you get there, you can see it's still very much this kind of old school vibe, much smaller buildings. So it's quite unique.
I mean, it's an ancient little village, but it is a neighborhood as well. And I think sometimes when you go to these places, even as, a tourist or for a lunch, people live there.
Oh, yeah,
People
absolutely.
live there. They park their cars there. They go to church there. They shop there. It's not just a touristy little town. It is a thriving, vibrant neighborhood. And like many of the towns in Spain, very complicated history between the Muslims, the Moors, the Christians. I was reading some of the history. And again, I'm going to just preface this by saying neither of us are historians. We sort of gather little bits and pieces of information. But if you follow the history of Altea, I would say it is like a table tennis match.
Yes,
Back
absolutely.
and forth, the control.
So, Nalini, do you want me to give just a little bit of a high level of that timeline and what it looks like? So normally we wouldn't, maybe put so much focus on the history of a town and talk a little bit more about, the food, the bars, etc. But Altea is truly so unique in terms of what it's gone through that we thought it was worth sharing with the listeners a little bit about how it came about. And like Nalini said, the ping pong match of different people that have lived there through the years. So starting of 1st century BC to the 5th century AD, it was really a trading post for the Romans.
Yes.
So again, near the sea, it's, easy access. So that's one of the reasons that, it became a trading post. Then 8th to the 13th century, the Moors actually introduced some of the things that make Altea look how it looks today.
The tiles, the blue, some of the architecture.
And the architecture being mostly focused on defending themselves and defending the town. And I think in that, one thing that's pretty cool about that, and I never realized it until we started doing the research for the history for the episode, is that the little streets that feel like a maze and all the cobblestones, by the way, disclaimer, do not wear heels when you go out for dinner in Altea.
That's a story for another day, but do not wear heels there.
No, absolutely. So those were purposely built super confusingly so that people that were trying to attack would get lost. So the little kind of cobble maze, streets are very much on purpose. So that's another nice little bit on the timeline. Then the Christian reconquest was 1244 to the 1600s. So that was a big period. And that was when, and I'm going to say this in Spanish, the Rey Jaime de Aragon, they reclaimed the land. And that's when they built the famous Blue Dome Church that we all love today, on top of one of the Moorish fortresses. So the fortress already kind of existed, and then they just tagged along this, Blue Dome Church. So that was during that period of time. We will be going to the Alhambra for season 2. Yay. And you'll be seeing about that. So a little bit of that vibe of, different cultures built on other cultures. In the Alhambra as well, same thing. You kind of you start off with one culture and then they kept growing it. I think Altea is very much that way, in the sense that it wasn't like, I don't think anything was destroyed and started again, but you have to build on.
And the approach of Altea, when you kind of go up to it, you walk through and you're looking at the overlook there, you see why it was such an important town, because it's high up and close to water. So it would be easy to defend. You could see what was coming at you from the sea, basically. And you were still far enough away that you would be secure. So when you read the history of it and you see how many times that it changed hands, that's the reason why. It's the geographical location of it.
It's very, very unique. And if you are watching us on YouTube today or on socials, you'll see that we're kind of dressed very Alteano, or like a little bit more relaxed. We did that on purpose, kind of like almost a little hippie-ish looking. So that also ties into this timeline. One moment before we get to more of that hippie-ish area that I thought was pretty cool and I had no idea about, was there was a lot of pirate attacks there.
Yes.
So between the kind of 16th and 17th century, there was a ton of pirate attacks, and the church was basically used for protection. So everyone would go up there and like hide from the pirates. If you've walked Altea, you'll know that is a hike from the beach. So.
Absolutely. And what's really, I think, special about a town like Altea is that because it is and I mean this sort of in quotations, it's a real town. I mean, you'll have people coming out of their apartments for work. You have cars, believe it or not. Everybody walks in the middle of the road thinking that there are no cars, but there are cars because people have to park their car and go into their houses. And the church, despite the fact that it's beautiful inside, it is a working, functioning church. So a service might be on. So I would just say, if you are going to Altea, maybe respect those things about the town, because,
you just have to know.
Yeah, it is really special. I've seen a wedding there taking place, and, every tourist opening the door, trying to
taking pictures
take
and
pictures.
A selfie video while the wedding's going on.
And literally the bride and groom are at the front exchanging vows. I thought, interesting.
That's great. Yeah. So one thing, if you are not staying in Altea and you're just heading there to visit, I do believe it's one of those that it's better to either take public transport or taxi, because it is extremely hard to park, particularly in summer.
Oh,
it does
forget
get,
it.
It
It's
does
impossible.
get much busier. Same thing, restaurant reservations. I think it's got to be like, a couple months in advance if you're going in the summer, because it does get very busy, but it's worth it. So just to give you a visual of what the town looks like, if you haven't seen it yet, it is very white, like whitewashed walls.
It looks like Greece.
Yeah, little townhouses. Kind of like a Santorini vibe, right? With the blue dome.
Yeah.
The blue dome from the church, by the way, you can see it when you're driving up there from a far away. So it's, and then obviously you've got beaches, but beware, the beaches there are stone beaches.
Right.
So you have to go with the water shoes.
Yes. And they have the geraniums in the window. I mean, it's, if you picture sort of a quintessential little Spanish village, and it is Altea. You couldn't draw it more perfectly.
Yeah, I feel like Rhoda, Altea have that kind of similar vibe. It is beautiful. And getting to kind of the last point in our timeline, in the 50s, in the 1950s, it's really when it started to become this kind of artisty craftsmanship, these people who are kind of more, I would say, quote unquote hippie-ish.
Yeah.
You know, you have that kind of vibe that attracted people like that. And one thing that I want to mention about Altea is, you know, we talk about, the energy, the vibe that you feel somewhere. You know, you go to Benidorm, as we discussed before, there's a certain vibe. You go to Guadalajara, there's a certain vibe. Altea has this very calming vibe.
It does.
It doesn't.
Absolutely.
It's almost like even when it's busy, it doesn't feel like anyone's in a rush.
No, and you know it's actually funny you mentioned that. We've been there many times when it's busy, but it's never loud.
No, it's
Benidorm is loud.
always.
We went last summer in the height of summer, very hot day that we were there.
Yes.
I mean, they're people, but it's not this like frenetic, loud kind of energy. I think maybe it's because the church is in the middle and somehow people know to maybe control themselves.
And I would say independent of your religious background. I don't know what it is about that church or about the dome, but I always find that whenever I walk in there, it's just all of a sudden you just feel this calmness.
Yeah.
And I want to say it's maybe because there's a lot of intention, you know, when people, you know, go into a church, and this happens in a lot of different churches, but that one in Altea has just got that particular really good energy about it. Also worth mentioning that Altea, the name, comes from Altea, which means to heal. So there were some people that attributed healing properties to the town, maybe because of the closeness to the sea or because of the great climate. But there is something there that, you know, it's a calm, chill out vibe.
It absolutely is. And
we
again,
actually have our sangria that we'll talk about. But
and would you say you have a favorite little place to go in Altea? I have a little favorite place.
Tell me yours.
Mine is I cannot remember the name of the little jewelry shop.
Okay.
The one that we always go in, and he makes little things. It's really cute. I love that place.
It's in that street that looks like almost a little tunnel.
Yeah.
And that has the
I mean, there are
arch at
many
the
jewelry
end.
shops there. But even though there are quite a few, each one has its own style.
Yeah.
So his is a little bit different, and he said, every single day of the year, including Christmas Day.
That's the one thing as well. If you're looking for like a day out when other places are going to be closed, you are still going to be able to go shopping. You're still going to be able to go look around. It is a very family-friendly place as well. So most of the restaurants that you go to, you know, people will be with their kids. And the stores, I would say one watch out point for our fashion lovers and shopping maniacs, a little bit like Nalini and I. The stores are a tiny bit overpriced. Like I remember I was looking at some dresses a couple of weeks ago that maybe elsewhere you would have been able to get for a third of the price. But because you're walking around Altea.
Yeah, it's to be expected.
Yes.
It's kind of like a little con.
It is kind of like a little
Blanca.
con. It is.
That's what it is.
And the other thing as well that I think is worth mentioning that may be surprising to people, even though we're focusing on the old town, is that there is a massive population of Russian people in Altea. And even one residential area has the street in Russian as well as Spanish.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Is that in Altea Hills?
It is. Altea Hills. And actually, I believe that Putin had a house there for a while. That's the word. And this is quite interesting actually, because I had a friend that was one of the top jamon cutters in Spain. This gentleman gets flied out to Japan to cut ham. And he's cut ham for the king and all this kind of stuff. And he was many times requested to go up to Altea Hills to different houses where he couldn't say where he was at. But, you know, to cut ham for some of the Russian community there.
Oh, oddly enough, that was the first neighborhood that we looked at a house in.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's
beautiful, but depending on where you're going to base your life, it's a little bit far away.
Yeah.
There's even a Russian Orthodox church there.
Yes. We tried to get there the day that we went, but it was just a little...
We had too much going on.
It was a little complicated,
awesome,
to say the least.
So, Nalini, anything else you want to mention about Altea before we move to our slice of life?
I would say just before we get to that, we had lunch at a beautiful restaurant called The Crown.
Yes.
And that's another thing. You can have Italian food in Altea. You can have traditional Spanish food. You can have Indian food, which is the Crown.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute little restaurant. You have to kind of go upstairs. So if you have a bit of an issue with stairs, that might be difficult. But the patio upstairs overlooks the Mediterranean. It's
Would you
beautiful.
say it's authentic Indian? Quite authentic? Or
I would say so.
Yeah, right?
And
I
the
mean,
service is great. It's just a really nice, and the food honestly is
It's
delicious.
really good.
And not expensive.
Anyone looking for somewhere that you want to have like vegetarian or veggie options, that place is amazing.
No.
Like, it really is fantastic.
We
for that.
ate, the three of us, for under €90.
Yeah.
Including 3 drinks, I think.
So the Crown is a great one.
Yeah.
And if it's summer, ask for a reservation on the terrace upstairs. You have a 360-degree view of the mountains, the sea. But that one you have to get really kind of up front in order to be able to get. So yeah. Anything else other than the Crown that you want to mention?
No, just wear flats.
Okay,
Otherwise,
yeah.
you will twist your ankle.
No.
Be forewarned.
Like in the San Fermin, please no heels if you want to survive.
Yeah, flats recommended.
Awesome.
Okay, slice of life.
Yay. So our first slice of life of season 2.
Exciting.
We've
we
introduced cheers Nalini, to a great season 1, and thank you to everybody who listened.
Absolutely. What are we drinking, Laura?
We are drinking the quintessential Spanish drink to people from outside Spain, sangria. But we were having this debate. Growing up, I don't think I saw many people ordering sangria unless it was like a really hot day. You're by the beach. You're having paella. And, it's like you're in that touristy mode even if you live there.
Here it's more Tinto de Verano, though.
Tinto de Verano is definitely being what's come up. And it's quite different to sangria. So maybe let's talk for a moment about what's in this sangria. Right. And you can check out the video as well that we made for socials.
Everything. You put everything. There's a little bit of vermouth, gin, triple sec.
Vermouth, gin, triple sec.
Red wine.
Red wine, of course, which gives it the bloody color of the sangria, which is... Sangre in Spanish means blood.
Maybe not as appetizing when you look at that. I try to do the history of sangria just to learn about it, but there are many backstories to it. I don't think any of them are necessarily true. I think it's just that you have a cheap bottle of wine, you have leftover fruit, not even leftover fruit. You just have fruit in the house in the summer. It's hot, and you kind of just mix it all together with some ice and enjoy. And I think it's become a very, as you said, quintessential, what you sort of anticipate to drink if you were to visit Spain. But honestly,
sitting at a terrace.
I don't see a lot of people drinking it.
Well, it's got a ton of sugar in it. Let's face it. So you can put just about any fruit in there. Mostly people put oranges and lemons, and right at the end you add some Fanta or Fanta lemon, Fanta orange, and
for more sugar in case
in case you didn't have enough sugar, just a little
more sugar. Yeah.
So sugar from the fruit, sugar from the alcohol, and actual sugar is in sangria. So.
And oddly enough, we are eating sugar today on the table, because in Altea there is a really cute pastry shop called Sabor, and it is owned by a Spanish family. It's passed down, I think now maybe the 3rd generation, but the original owners of it, they fell in love with pastries. They went to Valencia. It's a Spanish family to learn the art of pastry making. They went to Barcelona to learn certain techniques. They traveled to Belgium, to Paris. So their recipes are, I would say, up there with any sort of pastry shop you would find in, let's say, France. Yeah, they're beautiful pastries. They have beautiful ice creams, all made in-house. They have their location in Altea, but they also service other restaurants. Because as an expat here, when you eat out at a restaurant, I would say in my experience here as an expat, if you go out for a typical Spanish lunch, let's say at 2:00, and it's a long lunch and you've got lots of things on the table and the drinks. I don't really ever recall ordering a dessert, because I don't feel in terms of culinary history, the desserts are very prevalent here.
Well, I think you and I are not very kind of dessert people. So
Yeah.
I will say, though, I do think a lot of people do have a sweet tooth. As you know, my family has a shop that sells cakes and everything else, called Valentina's Coffee Shop. And I have to say that it's always amazing to me how many people actually have dessert for breakfast. They come and have like a piece of cake for breakfast.
That's what I think here. Like you see more people having sweets earlier in the day.
Or sweets by themselves.
Yes.
Instead of like after a big meal,
Right.
you have a dessert. It's kind of sweet by themselves with a cocktail, with a drink.
Exactly.
Which we'll talk more about a little bit later in the season.
Okay,
So should we try this?
Yeah. So
okay.
I got us ice cream.
So let's see.
I don't remember what flavor this is. I'm sorry.
It tastes super. I kind of tastes like donut. I think this is donut ice cream.
It's tiramisu.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think it tastes like donut. Okay. It's tiramisu donuts.
But it's delicious, by the way.
So we have an ice cream. Tiramisu. It's definitely tiramisu. Yes, I can feel it now. Tiramisu ice cream from Sabor. And Nalini has brought some wonderful desserts from Sabor. So should we give this a try?
Yeah. Okay, I don't know which one this is.
I am
They're
going
all
in for the
delicious.
chocolate. Let's see. Hopefully this doesn't end up all over my dress. So good.
So good. Oh, wow.
It tastes like Nutella
Tastes like
and
heaven.
Snickers. That's so
And
good.
just to wash the sugar down, I'm going to have a sip now of my drink.
Okay, I'm going to try a little bit of this raspberry one. It's absolutely beautiful. It's got like a green sort of salt on it that looks like a pistachio salt almost.
Yeah, I would recommend if you go to Altea, have a nice lunch somewhere and then stop at Sabor after for your dessert because
It's delicious.
It's delicious, and they're really homemade, high quality ingredients. I think I have my coffee in the Carrefour at Sabor maybe 4 times a week. Yeah,
So good.
So Laura and I did a little field trip on our own a few weeks ago to the Fonts.
Del Algar.
Yes, which is another fantastic place to visit. It's a series of waterfalls. Like, how would you explain a series of waterfalls?
It is, so font means fountain.
Right.
So it's a naturally occurring waterfall.
Yes.
I guess water coming out of the mountains nearby. And it makes like a little river with some waterfall and some small natural lakes as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's gorgeous. Again, one of these places that in the summer, you either have to go before everyone else or maybe after because it does get quite busy.
Yeah. And if you're looking for your Instagram photo, you cannot get it in the middle of the day. It's impossible.
Now, we did because we were crazy enough to go in when it was absolutely freezing and everybody was staring at us like we were entertainment.
We were literally the attraction because people were on the bridge watching it. They were watching us. It's kind of a little embarrassing, but then at the same time too, we sort of didn't
We
care.
don't care.
The water is cold, but it's so refreshing and it's a really magical place.
I have to say that I kind of like that it's cold.
Me too.
It just kind of feels like, now there's this whole vibe around cold plunging and everything else. It's the natural version of that. It's so beautiful. It is clean. It's not somewhere that, is like kind of like, sometimes when you go to some of the beaches, there's like all the algae and everything. And I know that's naturally occurring and it should be there. But this just feels like really pristine.
Yeah,
so
it's a different experience. And you can
absolutely
picnic. You
recommend
can
it.
take a little picnic if you want, but you
Yeah.
have to kind of hike to the top, I think.
Yes.
So be prepared if you...
For the brave ones, you can actually jump, one of the areas. We weren't
the
going to
kids-
do that.
The kids did it in the summer.
Yeah,
They did
we
it.
weren't going to do that, but
No.
you can jump into the water. There is a part where you can do that. So definitely recommend Fonts del Algar. The actual Rio Algar actually ends in Altea.
Yes.
So very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend it. So that's a little bit about the fonts. And we want to introduce something in season 2 about we're going to have, since we have the slice of life, we're going to have a drop of tea.
Yes.
So just a little bit of gossip for what's going on out there that we think may be kind of interesting to our listeners and always kind of ties back to Spain in some way.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us the tea for this time, Nalini?
Well, I thought today we would just have a quick discussion about Meghan Markle and her new brand and her the brand logo, which is quite similar. I would say almost identical.
It's basically so the way I see it, it's almost like you take a logo, you put a filter on it.
Yes.
And the colors are different. But the actual logo design is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's the logo from a small Mallorquin town. Okay, if you pronounce the name, because my pronunciation is...
The R's are hard, right?
Yeah.
So the town is called Porreres.
Yes, there are a lot of R's.
It's Porreres. So the town is called Porreres, and they've had that coat of arms,
Yes.
or they've had that since the 17th century. So
They've had it forever. And it's a town of less than 6,000 people. They've been put on the map. The mayor, her name is Chisca
Chisca Mora. And,
Yes.
and Chisca, interestingly enough, is also the name of Nadal, the famous tennis player's wife. And I was telling Nalini the other day, I think that must be like a Mallorquin name,
It is,
because I've
yeah.
never heard the name Chisca before, just, people from Mallorca. So Chisca Mora, she is how do you say a female version of a mayor?
Mayor.
Okay,
Yeah.
so she's the mayor,
Yeah.
and
And she said she's very grateful in a way that their little town that nobody has heard of. First of all, where the town is located is in the center of Mallorca, which often for tourists, you would not visit that town.
Right.
It's very rural, but if you happen to drive the length of the island, which I've done many, many times, it's really beautiful. It's a really spectacular, jaw-dropping drive. Nobody's ever talked about her town, so she's really happy they're on the map. However, their little town doesn't have the money to sue Meghan Markle.
So I think she probably looked at this situation in two different ways. She said, okay, we don't have the money for lawyers to go ahead and sue Meghan Markle for copying our logo, so let's make the most out of this. So she actually came out and said that she invited her to be the patron of the fiestas
Yes.
for the town. We'll see if she answers.
Yeah.
But we thought that was quite interesting, that at the end of the day, things like this happen all the time. But I wonder if Meghan's actually heard about it. Has it made enough noise in the news that she's actually heard about, what happened with this little town in Mallorca? Because it's all over the news here.
This is the front page in English newspapers.
There you go.
So, all right.
All right.
I'm not saying anything bad about Meghan Markle.
No. Please don't come after us. We love you. Sort of. Okay. So, Nalini, are you ready?
I'm ready. I have my
Sentence
drink in
of
hand.
the day. You have
so,
your drink in
yeah,
hand.
I'm ready.
Okay. So we're gonna start soft this season. I'm not gonna make them too hard at the beginning, and by episode 3 you'll want to kill me. How's that? So for this one today, the sentence is estar metida en el ajo.
Okay.
So let's try and kind of go backwards. What's ajo?
Garlic.
Garlic. Estar metida,
So the
to
method?
be in
The garlic?
to be in the garlic.
Okay.
Estar metida en el ajo. What do you think that means?
Okay, if I were to use an English phrase, maybe you're in a pickle.
You're kind of part of the problem.
Oh no. Okay.
But almost. You're in a pickle,
Right.
and maybe you didn't maybe you didn't realize you're part of the problem.
Ah, okay.
So
That's a
estar
good
en el
one.
ajo is like all of a sudden you realize that you are part of whatever
Right,
the
okay.
problem is or what's happening. Estar en el ajo. Estar metida en el ajo. Estar en el ajo. Inside the garlic.
Oh, good, good.
I don't know why, if it's because, garlic really smells and once you're in the garlic, you kind of can't get away from it. But that's the sentence, is you are a part of the problem, friend.
Yeah.
So it's like, estar metida en el ajo.
All right, good. Cheers.
Cheers. We're looking forward to a great season with the
Yeah.
listeners. Please remember to follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode.